Dylan Brown has fronted up to explain his mega move to the Knights, with the $13 million man insisting money wasn't the motivating factor.
Yeah, I think it was. Probably, obviously, gained some good relationships here at the club. Not only just the teammates, but the new coaching staff, everyone up in the front office. You know, I've been here a long time now, so there's relationships everywhere that I'm obviously going to miss. Knights have put a lot of faith in me, and they obviously put 10 years there in front of me. I didn't think I was going to leave this club ever, to be honest. I've been here a long time, and I've never really wanted to leave, but there's other reasons to leaving. It's my family, it's my future, so the game's not long, and I'm trying to look after myself and my family, so I'm happy with my decision now.
Some people are saying that the Knights have paid overs for you. What would you say to them?
Once again, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I play the best that I can, and offers are obviously been put in front of me, so I'd be silly not to take it. Money's never really been a thing for me. It's 10 years security. Like I said before, it's for my family and it's for my future in the game. Like you said, they've got Caleb Ponga at the back, and you know, Fletcher Sharp, he's an amazing player too. So obviously looked at those people when I was making my decision, and yeah, I'm happy to go join them. A lot of the talking's actually been done by my manager, so that's what took so long to make the decision. I wish I could have made it earlier to not disrupt the start of the season, but yeah, I had to take my time because it's obviously a pretty big deal.
Are there any clauses in that contract?
I'm not sure. I don't think so, no crazy ones.
How much does this club mean to you?
Bro, honestly, I've been here since I was 15. The decision wasn't easy, and the fans were one of the reasons why. You know, they've always backed me no matter what. You know, I never wanted to leave, and I had a few discussions with Parramatta, and they put forward their best contract, and the Knights was just too hard to turn down. 10 years is a lot of trust to have in one, and Knights have done that for me. Para's already done that before, and they just couldn't compete this time. There's nothing wrong with Para. I still love him. Still the club I'm going to be playing for this year, and I have a lot of respect for him. So.
Obviously, with you now leaving, that leaves a bit of a hole. Was that something you weighed up in your decision-making process?
Look, no, not really. Obviously, like I said, the opportunity for me was amazing, so I had to go. But whoever comes in, I'm sure they'll do a good job, and we've obviously got 3 young halves as well in our team that can also step up next year. So, yeah. Success doesn't happen overnight, so obviously when I go there, it's going to take a while. Good things could happen. Might be a bit rocky, but at the start. But you know, we're going to obviously go there in the pre-season and focus on that then. But at the moment, you know, I've got a season to focus on now, and I've got to play good footy.
There he is, the man of the moment, Brown, insisting that it wasn't all about the money. Now, we can't begrudge him for taking the deal, Gordy. There's no doubt about that. But do we believe that it wasn't about the money?
Well, it is about the money because that's why we all go to work. We go to work to earn money. But that's not, you can't hold grudges against him. He got $13 million. Every player in the game would have probably taken a deal. We had a couple of players on last night, and they would have taken a deal as well. Yeah. So it's not his fault, and I would have taken a deal as well.
I get what he means, though, that it's not necessarily about the money that got the deal done. It's the length of the contract, because I think if Parramatta went to 10 years on money less than what Newcastle Knights offered,
money?
No, less than what Newcastle Knights offered, I think he would have stayed. So when he says...
Come on, Mick. I think it's both. I think it's definitely, you're right.
It's the length of the contract. That's what he's talking about. The money's great, right?
He had a long contract.
He had a long contract, but this is
But over the length of the contract means that it's going to be millions. It's going to be in the millions.
Look, I understand all that, right? But I think deep down, if Parramatta went near the offer, and particularly the length of the deal, I think he stays at Parramatta. So when he says it's not about the money, I think he's indicating more towards the length of the deal rather than as much as it was.
I think it is about the money. Of course it's about the money. You're right about the length of term, but he was signed at Parramatta until the end of 2031 anyway. So he had guaranteed a long-term future at that joint. So I think without a doubt, Braith, of course, it's the cash, and then it's also the fact that he solidifies himself for the next 10 seasons.
Yeah, absolutely. He didn't need to explain anymore. Like he said, he sort of contradicted himself because he said, I want to set up my family and myself, and that's fine.
Yeah.
And then, but it's not about the money. Well, it is, because you actually want to set up your family and set up your career.
No one begrudges him. No one begrudges him. Like he's one Powerball.
We all do the same.
Everyone's taking that deal, right? I don't.
Absolutely.
That's what I mean. He didn't need to actually even say it.
Come out and say it's not about the money. But I think what he meant was the 10-year deal that was too good to refuse.
Well, no one else is offering that.
No way. Well, Parramatta won't offering it.
It's great timing.
Yeah. Parramatta weren't going to go 10 years. They just won't. They weren't going to do that. Had they gone to that on the money that was on, he might have stayed.
Okay, now, Knights legends, they're not all on the same page with this. Some like the fact that he's going there and at that amount of money for that term of deal, and some don't. What does that say?
Well, I don't think anyone's sitting here comfortable with the 10 years. I don't think anyone's going to say that's exactly what they should have done. It's what they needed to do, but in an ideal world, they would have signed him for 5, 6, 7 years and not gone to the 10 years. So I can understand the criticism of it because...
But why didn't they sign him for 5, 6?
Because he wouldn't have gone.
He wouldn't have gone.
He wouldn't have gone there.
They needed to turn his head, Gordy. Like they needed a circuit breaker to be able to get him out of where he was.
And that comes down to his fact that it wasn't about the money. Because if they offered him 5 or 6
come
years...
on, can we move on from... Clearly, it's about the money,
It's
mate.
about the length. Number one is the length.
It's also about the length, right?
It's the length,
but
then the money.
The cash had a massive factor to do with it.
Of course it does, right? But it's
It
over
talks all languages,
it's the
that's
10-year
why he's done
period.
it.
So if you say if they offered him 6 years, would he have gone at that money?
He was signed till 2031 anyway.
Okay, all right. So they went to 2031 at the same money. Would he have gone?
No,
Probably
of course
not.
not. Yeah.
But then it gets to a point where, because he's on $1 million a year anyway, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure Parramatta would have said, we'll give you an extra 100 or something like that. But
I don't think they
wouldn't.
I don't think
it
they
was
would
just $1
change.
million?
Oh, yeah, maybe. I think it got to 1.1 at some stage, that deal.
Yeah.
Right? That the current deal that he was on.
Yeah. So 200 after tax over a few years. It's not. It's
the length.
Yeah,
Frank.
well, I know. With those extra years,
Yeah.
it's a significant amount.
It is significant, no doubt. But if Newcastle at the same length as Parramatta, he stays at the Eels.
And coming back to the old boys, right? I think Newcastle playing against them in their heyday, it was about all their local juniors, and that's what made that club tick. And they were playing for the community. Well, they got Ponga, and if they keep on signing these big name kids, which is fine because they want to win competitions, but if they lose their local juniors and their identity, I think that's the part they got to be careful with the Knights.
It's a good point, and the fact that it is divided amongst the old boys, that reflects the widespread reaction around the game. There have been two schools of thought. Some people in other rival clubs think it's complete madness.
Yeah.
When you actually get the calculator out, it works out to be 23% of Newcastle's salary cap, Dylan Brown and Kalen Ponga, for the next 3 or 4 seasons.
Were they competing against themselves,
forward.
Parramatta?
No,
the Knights?
Newcastle were competing against Parramatta. That offer that was already on the table from Parramatta. There was no one else involved. It was either Newcastle or Parramatta. But Parramatta had that deal already on the table for Dylan, so that's what they were competing against.
All right, Reddy reveals hybrid halfback plan. Can we explain this one? It was in today's paper, Daily Telegraph.
Yeah, I was a little bit confused by this, Braith. I was going to come back to yourself because you played in the halves. I've never heard of a hybrid halfback position previously, but clearly what Newcastle have sold Dylan is that Fletcher Sharp is going to be in the halves. He'll partner him, and then Kalen Ponga is going to be the fullback. How that all fits together, I'm not sure.
I read this this morning, and I believe, because Dylan, first thing, if you're a 6 and you go into a new club on a long-term deal, you're asking who the 7's going to be. So I believe that's what he would have done. He would have said, well, who's going to be playing 7? And they're trying to sell Sharp to him, and obviously Kalen's an easy sell. I mean, he speaks for himself. So they've probably put a game plan to him that suggests that he can play like a 7-6 and then share that with Sharp and Ponga and responsibilities,
Braith, how
all across the park.
Braith, you being a great 6, how important is it a 7? I watched Alan Langer combine with Laurie Daly, two of the greats. It didn't work. But Ricky and Laurie worked. Alf and Kevy worked, Tuvey and Cliffy Lyons worked.
I think it's very important. Whenever I played my best throughout my career, I had Brent Sherr inside of me who was completely controlling the kicking game and game plans along with myself, but he was the dominant one there, especially with his kicking game and getting in the forwards. We obviously had a good forward pack, and the other example is Andrew Johns in Origin. When I played with him, it was like he controlled the team it was like a game of chess for him. He was 3 or 4 steps ahead, and I just had to worry about my job at 6, which made it so much easier.
I'm glad you mentioned Joey, because this is, aside from the money and the length of term that Dylan signed for, he's going to have to wear that 7 jumper. That's what's going to happen here. And the Brown camp are now quite actively pushing the fact that he actually came throughout the juniors as a halfback, as did Fletcher Sharp as well. He played predominantly all of his football in the halves until he was shifted to the wing and fullback.
7 or 6 though, Fletcher
7,
Sharp?
Well, for Brown, let's stick with Brown for the moment.
Yeah.
For Brown, right, he was a 7. Okay. So the question is going to be if he's going to wear that jumper that Joey has made famous, and they haven't won a premiership since Joey last wore that jumper all the way back in 2001. Yeah. How's this hybrid halfback role going to work? Surely you can't be half in, half out when it comes to who's the dominant half.
The word that you used, Braith, was control. Who's controlling that side? Who's running that side? That's going to be it has to be
him,
Dylan, right?
Because why I mentioned Sharp is because Sharp, as great as he's playing at the moment, and he will continue because I think he's a great talent. He's a runner. He's the furthest thing from a control half. Like look at him. He's taking dummy half scoots on the weekend, and he was getting quick play of the balls. He was making meters at ease. He was eating them up, and he's got to be in the team. But Dylan has shown in the past that it's not his strong point. Like, Moses, when he's been out, the success rate's been poor. On the weekend, we saw it against Melbourne. Like, he didn't take control. It's not his natural game. So I don't think we should read too much into Reedy's article, into the hybrid thing. I think that was them trying to sell to Dylan, listen, come to the club, we'll work it out, this is our ideas. And Blake Green, mind you, because I spoke with Blake not throughout the off-season in terms of a few players I've got, and I spoke to the club about him. They've got big raps on him, and all the players love him. And he's highly regarded as one of the best up-and-coming coaches coming through, and he's obviously specialises on the half. So I think Blake, if he can get his mind ticking over this year in the pre-season, he holds a lot of power and value up there in Newcastle. I think he can work out a system and a way of which they can bring Dylan in and get the most out of him. But he's going to have to change the way that he plays.
I think, you're spot on. And I think the hybrid half is a spin because they've got to try and keep the side together this year. Yes. And they tried 11 different halves combinations last year. Not really any of them worked. So, and
they want to please the other two that they're talking about as well. They want to keep them happy and make sure that they are comfortable with Dylan coming in.
Okay, Braith, you're a sixth. If you went to 7, how long would it take you?
It takes time. It's like, you look at the great sevens, even the great sevens, like...
How long has it taken Cleary?
Cleary is actually an exception to the rule. Like, he has peaked before
he's been
Thurston,
very good and just gone to
Johns, all of them. Like, he's... Like, they all... Look at Joey and JT, they all played their best late 20s, early 30s. Cooper, Cronk, all of them. So there's a lot of work to be done there. Now,